All right, guys. Thank you so much for doing this, first of all.
Of course.
A pleasure.
Lo and behold, I have enjoyed your music over the years as a, man in his 30s. But it is something, as someone who doesn't understand music but appreciates it. I have two guitars on my wall. I tried them once, they didn't work. I cursed at them and put them on the wall. That's the extent of, when I was a kid, my grandfather had a piano. I smashed it once or twice, went, nope, don't know it, moved on. It's
Okay.
me that someone can create a sound that's pleasant, right? Let alone tell a story with it, let alone connect to a visual medium. All these things are just impossible to me. So
Okay.
the idea of being able to do it for years and for decades and to not be repetitious and to have it be familiar but different, it's this skill that I can't even comprehend. So when you start a new project, how are you able to sit there and decide on a sound or have the sound come to you?
Well,
It's
it's
completely.
yes. With each project, you're right. I want to find the musical world
Yeah.
to tell the story, or sometimes worlds, as in like an Aladdin where you have the, Harlem Jazz. You go, what does it have to do with, a Arab story? But because it's the Hollywood depiction.
Yeah.
When you search to find the most appropriate vocabulary,
Hmm.
on this one, it's a tough one. This was a hard one to find the vocabulary because it doesn't exist in any sort of real world whatsoever, any real specific culture. It doesn't have a romantic story within it, or romance.
Hmm.
It doesn't have a villain. Um, it is a it's a personal, emotional journey.
Yeah.
And so we sat down and we really worked on the structure first. And we knew, I think we wanted to go for something of sort of world music oriented.
Yeah.
Um,
We wanted it's in a fantasy world, so we didn't want it to feel like, oh, you're in one place or another place for the entire evening. We wanted it to feel more like lots of different influences creating this entirely fantastic world.
and along the way, I'll confess, there were times I was not comfortable. I was going, where am I? But once we landed the number that became My Parents Are Monsters and the way it was before, and everyone embraced them and said, this is it, then at least we have the DNA to pull from. And it all felt unique to this project. It didn't feel like I was treading on ground I've been on before. But it's
I,
always a challenge.
yeah. For both of you, I gotta imagine because it's such a specific skill to do music for film because it has to be a song you want to listen to, right? It has to be lyrics that you find enjoyable. It has to be a sound that's
If
pleasant.
you say music for film, I would like to substitute musical.
Yes.
Mu- uh, Music for something that is essentially driven by music, dramaturgically, whether on stage or in film.
Oh yeah, but no, to be able to have it still work as music, right? Independent of whatever you're watching, whether it's the soundtrack later, whether it's you're humming it when you're leaving the theater, like that needs to work, but also to help tell the story, to be an essential part of the work succeeding. And that's this other thing that's so incredible to me to go, okay, My Parents Are Monsters, and you figure out how it works. It becomes a song you're comfortable with, but it also then just sets you off on the path of the movie.
Right.
And the best musicals have that, right? Where
That's
you
each
listen.
moment on any project is nailing that first number, whether it's chronologically first or just the first thing that you work on, that establishes this is the world we're in. Then we can, at least musically, I know what we're pulling from.
Yeah, you're juggling so many different elements, and yet, as you said, you still want it to work as a pop song, and
Yeah.
that's like the Menken thing,
Yeah.
is that he can take all of those different elements, make them all work, and yet it always feels like a pop song. It always has one of those melodies that you can't forget, and a rhythm that just feels infectious, and you could pull it out of the movie and listen to it 100 times.
But it's also what the lyric does, for instance, in My Parents Are Monsters,
Yeah.
and establishing she's not a fairy tale girl. she's a teenage girl who turned to us and saying, look
Yeah.
at my life.
It's it's
Wait a second.
This is my life. Welcome, I guess.
This is my world. Welcome, I guess. Like, so my parents are sort of a mess. They've been on edge, stomping about, trying to approach it, like snarl and lash out.
So, we're doing plot, we're doing character voice, we're doing theme, we're telling backstory, we're alluding to what's going to happen later on.
And he played that song, and John and Vicky both went, "This is amazing. This is, yes, that's what we want." When we came up with the tirade of, what about me? And I could have landed, they could have gone, what? But it was just, yes, this is what we have to earn.
Yeah. And
in terms of the songs, songs are very powerful, but then you have to earn them.
oh yeah, it's
to earn them.
Yeah, it's something, it's this alchemy that when it works, you appeal first of all to every audience member. It doesn't matter how old you are. The probably growing up, the most listened to thing in my household was this like 3-disc like music of Disney thing, right? And it was chronological. It was stuff from when my mom was a kid all the way up to Aladdin and Little Mermaid and Lion King, like stuff that I had seen in the movie theater, right? I'm 37. So like first movies were Disney movies.
Right.
You got everyone connects to the songs with no images. And how many of those things were songs I heard and lyrics I knew and rhythm that I understood, never having seen the movie?
Right.
Ones I've probably still never seen. Things that when these work, they tell their own story and they tell that story. Like I feel like I've seen so many of those things.
Right. Well, that's the specificity.
Yeah.
Ironically, the most universally accessible things are also the most dramaturgically specific things. That because you're in that world. I remember when Howard and I wrote Be Our Guest, I go, none of these kids are going to know who Maurice Chevalier was. It's not going to mean anything to them. And it didn't matter because they knew the specificity was there.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody, most of the kids seeing, I could get used to this. They're not going to know necessarily what Brazilian street music is, but that's where that song comes from.
And you feel good, I think, as a kid. I remember not knowing what things meant, but you feel like an adult because I have a reference. Like, because everything you do is observe people who have references, right? They're talking about something in the news. You don't know what's in the news, but you want to have an opinion because you want to be a person. You want to be an adult. And I think with a song, when you see like your parents giggle, right, about a line, or you just know there's a name and you didn't know what it was, but you're like, I know that's clever. It's this fuel that I think is the reason why.
There's something going on here that I don't know about, but I want to know more about it.
Yeah, especially this type of music when done well, and God knows you guys do it well.
Thank you.
I think generate curiosity and like make a person a more well-rounded person. It's a good thing. It's not just entertaining. It actually serves a purpose, which is beyond everything else, like kind of incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we don't think of what we're doing as writing children's music or writing for a children's genre when we do animated film. We expect that children are smart and will pick up on everything, even if it's subliminally. And because we do that, they end up with these songs stay with them for life, as opposed to back in their childhood.
Yeah, God knows I'm an example of that. But no, it's so cool, and especially now, being grown up, for lack of a better word, and then seeing movies like this and listening to music like this and being taken back, but also realizing it's going to hit people differently who are younger. It's going to hit someone 10 years older than me differently. It's this new appreciation that you can have that, especially, God, I see 300 movies a year. Like anything that makes you start thinking about anything beyond this is 90 minutes where my legs are going to hurt because I'm not moving. It has this fuel that I think is so special. And it's really the only type of thing in the industry that does it, this type of music and this type of musical. So you guys should just be incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, Alan has had this his entire career, but I'm just now, we did Tangle together 15 years ago. And the people who were 7, 8, 9 years old when that movie came out are now adults. And it means something totally different to them than it did to the people who were adults when the movie came out. with a movie like this, where it's not just a story, but it's about this family dynamic and this experience that the characters are going through that a lot of people are going through in their real lives. You know, you write something like this and you realize, well, these are songs that are going to not just stick with people, but generation after generation will come back to this because it's expressing a dynamic that has always existed. And it will work for new generations of kids and for their parents and so on and so forth.
From your lips to God's ears.
Not wood.
Same for me. Thank you guys so much for doing this. This is a pleasure.
Thank you.
Makes me so.
I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Joey.